Hi, everybody. This is Gaynor Meilke from Charisma Inc. with Moving the Needle. It's about digital transformation in the accounting profession. And today I'm joined with my co-host, John Higgins, and Luke Frye from Rivet Tax. So looking forward to this conversation. And how are you doing, John?
I'm doing fine, Gaynor. How you doing today? Everything good?
Good, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so looking forward to this another session of our podcast. And as some of you know, you've watched our previous podcast. We really like to focus on just helping CPAs learn about emerging technologies that they can take advantage of in their practice. And so, very excited to hear what Luke Fry has to tell us about Rivet Tax software. So, Luke, welcome, and let us know a little bit about what Rivet Tax is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here. At Rivet, we're doing something pretty innovative in the sense that we are VC backed, but it is a pretty traditional firm that was started by an IRS agent more than 10 years ago. And we just rebranded after we got funding and built out a platform in 2024 to make it as easy as possible for clients to get their documents to us via Slack, text, SMS. It all gets uploaded automatically to their portal.
Wow. That's great. So really you've kind of taken the pain out of tax preparation, at least on the client side, and hopefully that's true internally as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, we certainly are looking at ways to help streamline our process on the back end as well, whether that's doing some mapping for our clients and on the tax side. But at the end of the day, Rivet is a team of very smart people, former Big Four with a minimum of 5 years of experience type of caliber, to actually keep that human in the loop. We're not really replacing humans at this point.
Right. But you also have a pretty storied background in the tech sector too. So I think tell us a little bit about how you went from, being part of a kind of well-known, I guess, software team, and then you got your CPA license, and then you went back into tech, and then you came back into
Sure.
the firm. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, I accidentally ended up in a tech startup. I didn't even know what it was. And when I was interviewing, it was right out of college. I had moved to New York with a credit card and a dream and, showed up to the Techstars office there in a Oxford polo and a suit jacket. And then I walk in and see all these people with t-shirts and sweatshirts and a ping pong table. And I was like, where am I? What am I doing? But they offered me a job, and that company was what turned into Bench. And so I was the first accountant hired at Bench, first non-founder employee, which was really fun because I got to be kind of like the intrapreneur there, meaning I helped start all these different little specializations. And, the last one I helped start, which was an overwhelming success from a sales point of view, but a pretty big train wreck operationally, was the tax team. And so I had worked under somebody who had a lot of experience in international tax. That's how I was able to get my CPA signed off on. And then, I linked up with somebody there who had a ton of experience in tax and the kind of tax that was exciting to me, which is S corps. And I always have my S corp book here, just to show
There you go. You're
people.
legit now. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, so, we went to Seattle, started a practice, and, got it to a decent amount of revenue for a couple people. And it was really fun to be on the other side where we didn't have venture funding. So we got to make all the decisions, but we also didn't have venture funding. So we had to make, decent money in order to pay our rent and live in a relatively expensive city in the US, in Seattle. So, did that for about 5 years, and I almost always found myself sort of on like the front of house roles, which typically is sales, right? Sales, account management, delivery, CS, depending on which organization. Um, you might call it something different, but someone who is happy to talk to clients, whether they're potential clients or current clients.
I think that your background as having your own practice for a period of time and then working in an organization with VC money would actually be very interesting for you to have conversation with some of the CPA firms that are going through the whole private equity conversation and trying to understand whether they should go down that path because I
Hmm.
think there's been some good success so far. I'm not that close to it personally, but I certainly read a lot about it, and I know it's
Yeah.
sort of a big issue going on in the profession right now, whether to take the private equity investment or not.
Yeah, I'm friends with some people in PE, and they're good people. And I think they have a good vision for the world and are, really trying to help people, especially those who have put in their time and, need an out, basically, And I think one thing that always scared me away from the profession and why I never went in Big Four, maybe because I couldn't hack it, but it's a pyramid and you either go up or you go out. And that's really demotivating to a lot of people, which is exciting to see how many new firms there are out there. Like people my age and younger, starting new firms, which is fantastic to help like give them that agency over their career. But you have all these people who went a little bit more traditional route and maybe built something, and they're wanting to get their retirement, and so it's great to see that there's a way for them to be able to do that. Money helps solve a lot of problems, but it certainly does come with strings, right? So I think if you're talking to somebody about taking money, you need to make sure that you really align with their vision and their values, and everyone's bought into that. Otherwise, I could see a lot of problems on the horizon.
Yeah, yeah, it's a different culture for sure. I'm sure. Yeah,
This-
I liked your comment about a lot of, seeing a lot of younger people starting their own practices. Definitely we see a lot of that. I think we're in the age of entrepreneurism. I really do, especially with AI, because it's like a really powerful tool to help even
Yeah.
the sole practitioner get something going. And so a lot of my presentations to CPAs on technology and practice models, I always remind them that you got to understand if you don't move forward as a firm with technology and leveraging it, these people are going to go and start their own businesses because they can start with a clean slate. They don't have the legacy issues to deal with, and that they got a pretty clear runway to take off. So it's just kind of a very
Yeah.
interesting time in the CPA profession from that perspective.
Hmm. So I think that's kind of an interesting point. Maybe you can talk a little bit about, Luke, is if you were starting a firm like all over today, because you've already done that, what advice would you give on the tech infrastructure specifically?
Mhm.
Because I think that's something that firms do struggle with now. It's like, great, we have a clean slate, we have all this AI. Like, how do we
Mhm.
get this set up and going?
Hmm. Wow. That's such a important and deep question, your tech stack, right? So, when I started my firm, I initially thought I would just set everything up on QuickBooks and, be good to go. Well, I quickly learned that being a CPA does not qualify you to do bookkeeping. It is a different thing. And QuickBooks is also a special tool that I had learned about in college 10 years before. So, um, I ended up also looking at Zero, and I essentially became a Zero partner because QuickBooks was so harsh with their sales and marketing to me that I just didn't want to work with them. So I think personally, I think it comes down to like the company's values again and how they want to operate. Is that somebody you want to work with long term? And I found Zero to be very compelling. Um, I'm way more comfortable in Zero. So I think about today if I were to start a practice, and I worked at Puzzle, another AI ledger, which is a general ledger that's AI native, and I know that inside and out. But it's really hard to compete against all the integrations for some of the legacy providers. So even though there are all these new tools out there, there's always a little bit of a risk and cost to choosing the newer tool. So you need to make sure that the efficiencies it's giving you are actually, worth the trade-off.
Mhm.
So to answer your question more directly, I think picking a tech stack is super important, but you probably want to start with like one or two of your non-negotiable tools, depending on whether you're a Gmail user or an Outlook user, or depending on
Mhm.
whether you're, a Mac or a PC and QuickBooks and Zero, and then maybe build off of there on the ecosystem. And then once you make a choice, try not to look at every new thing every time. Rely on people like John to bring you the, most up-to-date information and think about things to add on. But I think As long as you have a process, the system can follow suit. Systems can
Hmm.
certainly help automate things, but don't get overwhelmed with trying to automate everything all the time because then you're not going to get anything done.
Yeah. Well, that's good advice too, because I think people do tend to get lost in the weeds of tech sometimes. And, if you've got the bandwidth in your firm, that's one thing, but if you don't, like that's a whole different animal. Now, you were saying with Rivet Tax that you've kind of got your system locked down where clients can, basically give you all the documents for tax prep, seamlessly. I mean,
Mhm.
how has that process of building that been like years in the making, or is it something that you were able to put together pretty easily?
Yeah, I'm still sort of the new guy here, so I don't have all the storied history of building out
Mm-hmm.
the platform. But I know that in 2024 is really when the firm rebranded and then took on some venture capital. So it's been maybe a couple years in the making to build the software out. But yeah, anyone who knows how to Slack can get us documentation for their return. They could certainly log into their portal as well and see what's
Hmm.
missing. But we try to make working with us, this is one of the most common things I hear. Either their prior accountant doesn't reply to them or they're retiring. And they want to work with somebody who's modern, and all it means to be modern is you know, open up a Slack channel, be available for text, which I know can be really challenging, especially as a sole practitioner. But then you have to think about the systems and people to scale something like that to be approachable and hyper responsive.
Hmm.
So, Luke, would you say are you primarily a like tax outsource preparation company or a technology company? Where's kind of the lead there, would you say?
I would say tax company. We very much value the intellect and competency of our team. Pretty much all out of the Big Four with a minimum of 5 years of experience. And we happen to use some tech, some of
Okay.
which we built. So I would say we probably fall under the tech-enabled tax practice.
Hmm.
And do you have particular tax software? Or are you agnostic to tax prep software?
Yeah, we use a few different softwares. I know Drake is one of them and a couple others, depending on just the entity and some of the needs.
Okay.
So that's a kind of interesting model too, where you're really scaling out the firm to service, volume of clients. Now, are you doing individual tax as well as business taxes? So,
Yeah, one thing that sets us apart, especially as we operate a lot in the tech scene, we certainly do way more than that. But because we don't charge for R&D tax credits, it's a huge win for
Oh,
us.
yeah.
And we also do personal or founder tax returns. So most of our competition doesn't do personal returns. And
hmm.
so that alone, from a founder's point of view, can be just such a huge win because a lot of these people, especially if it's their first time founding a company, don't know the difference between bookkeeping and tax, let alone that there's a different personal and corporate tax person.
Hmm.
So if we can just take care of all the tax stuff in one place, they're pretty happy.
So I
And then
guess
do you
Luke,
work?
oh, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I was
No,
just
you go ahead.
just to clarify because I'm learning just about Rivet Tax as we talk today. Is it do you work through accounting and tax firms or do you offer your services directly to clients or both?
Directly to clients,
Oh,
exactly.
okay.
Mm,
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
Mhm.
That's good clarification. I was thinking, I don't know, I was thinking it was more of, a firm that accounting firms would use to outsource their tax prep, but you work directly. So if I got a small business, I could sign up with you folks and have you do my tax services.
Exactly. Yeah, we have anyone from like a small mom and pop Main Street USA business on through multi-billion dollar companies like Cursor and Cognition. So pretty
Interesting.
broad range.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you actually on that point of collaborating with other firms on the bookkeeping side. How do you, I guess, bridge that? It could be a potential gap, or do you just have like a hard line where it's like all we do is tax and we don't kind of refer out bookkeeping if that's needed?
Yeah, one thing I've worked on primarily in the last few months since I started here at Rivet is building out our bookkeeping partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
So we already had some really great ones, but it's as hard and perhaps bookkeepers experience the pain more in some ways than and the clients of finding a good tax preparer, and
Mhm.
unfortunately the bar is relatively low. It's like charge a reasonable rate. We're usually slightly more expensive than most firms, but we deliver a lot more. And so that's been able to open the door to some really cool bookkeeping and accounting partnerships for us to send work back and forth. And, at least two of them I talk to want to start their own tax practice. But the talent out there, like to find somebody who is basically partner level, who's not already partner and
Mhm.
you want to hire, is just so challenging. So at least two of them I know either had job descriptions or wanted to start their own tax practice internally. But the 0 to 1 on starting a tax practice is just so much bigger than a bookkeeping practice.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. So, given all of your its purview from like tech to being a CPA to having your own small firm to now, scaling Rivet Tax, I mean, where do you see tech and the accounting profession going like in the next year and the next like several years?
There's certainly that, fear-mongering side of none of us are gonna have jobs and we're all gonna be living on the street. I'm a little bit more optimistic than that, and um, I think anytime we get a little bit worried about job security, all we need to do is talk to somebody who knows absolutely nothing about accounting.
Hmm.
And I think I I run into this somewhat regularly now, where I'll be talking to a first-time founder who doesn't know a lot about tax, and I'm trying to get enough information to give them a clean fixed fee scope. We'll have 20 back and forth emails, two calls, and I'm educating, I'm teaching, which is one of the things I love. I love helping people understand taxes. And then at the end of it all, I'm like, okay, here's the proposal. He goes to Grok or some AI tool that says, "Hey, this is my detail. This is my business. What do I need to file?" And I say to him, "Where did that list come from?" And then I answer him line by line, because some of it is correct and some of it's kind of out there, So. I'm optimistic that AI is going to continue empowering us to do our jobs really well. And I don't want to discredit people from trying to use AI to learn things. I think that's great. I still think it's important to work with an advisor who has experience and can tell you whether that's a hallucination or not.
That's
Yeah.
a good example you give because, in a lot of my talks with CPAs about AI and like, what does this mean for them? I said, one of the things you got to realize is your clients are going to be coming to you a lot more informed. And it may not be accurate how they're informed,
Right.
like your example you just gave, right? But they're gonna kind of challenge whatever your services you're providing them because they're gonna take I think the completed tax return and just load it up into ChatGPT and say, hey, did Rivet Tax do this properly? And we're going to have to
Yeah.
be ready to answer questions because the AI will come back with some challenging questions probably on some of this. So it's going to be interesting times, but we have to, as CPAs and practitioners, really understand that's a new dynamic we haven't had to deal with in the past.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I think the general public is becoming a little bit more savvy that just because it's like, Dr. Google says it, so doesn't necessarily mean it is, and the same
Right.
with AI, even more so. So I think
Hmm.
um, as long as practitioners stay up to date on, what the real deal is on all of the, provisions and everything, they're going to have a advantage because, at the end of the day, I do believe that the trust factor that a accountant, a CPA brings far outweighs what seems like the easy and cheap way of using like technology to answer complex questions, especially with the type of founders and clients that you're working with, Luke. So that also speaks to finding a niche that's got maybe some more complicated issues that they're trying to
Hmm.
address as well. So that's great. I mean, it's certainly, I love this. I met you actually, I guess, at Scaling New Heights when you were
Right.
with Puzzle, and I thought that
Yeah.
was like a really innovative platform. And, you keeping your mind open has certainly given you a lot more opportunities in the accounting profession than, if you had
Yeah.
decided just to stay in one track. So I think that's another
Yeah.
important takeaway from today too, is that as an accountant, a CPA, there's so many avenues that you can use. I mean, John, you said that you'd been in a firm for a couple of years and then started the technology advising. So
Yeah.
yeah, lots of good stuff, and I think there's lots of good stuff ahead. So hopefully, Luke will be able to talk to you again, and you'll be conquering the world with Rivet Tax.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on with us, and all the best.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Luke, and good success for you.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, Gaynor.
Thank you.